So why didn't that prosperity magic work? Why didn't that romance law of attraction work? Why didn't that thing that you wanted to manifest come into being? I got a spooky thing to show you with the cards today, coming right up, right after this.
That's unexpected. I must say, you fight well.
Now put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Okay guys, good afternoon, this is Lunky Links, and I'm going to show you something that branches off from something that I showed you a few videos ago. The video called, I'm getting my cards out here because I'm going to show you. The video that was called, why everything is, the reason for everything in your life right now, where I showed you guys the 12 links of causation from the Tibetan Bond teaching on the 12 links of causation, and that sort of branched off from the one I did for you guys on the places where we reincarnate. So that one was I don't know, a few weeks back. I talked about 6 places that you could reincarnate, where you could reincarnate. This is the this is, for those of you who don't know, this is Yama, the Lord of the Dead. This is the mirror. He shows up to all of us. So there's a whole lot of reasons for people. They want something, they wish for something, they ask for something, they do some kind of magic for it, they invoke it, they call for it, they try to manifest it, and it doesn't come. Well, what happens? Well, I'm going to quickly go over these links again. These are the links of causation that starts with ignorance. Okay? This is really kind of what goes on in our lives every day. It starts with ignorance. Ignorance gives birth to karma or habit. Habit gives birth to consciousness, the monkey mind. The monkey mind consciousness gives birth to the body. Body gives birth to the senses. Senses give birth to the contact with the senses. That gives birth to, contact with the senses give birth to feelings and emotions. Feelings and emotions give birth to desires. Desires give birth to cling to desire objects. Clinging to desire objects gives birth to sexual intercourse. That gives birth to childbirth or birth. Childbirth and birth gives birth to death and old age, which starts, and that gives birth to ignorance again. Karma goes all the way around the wheel again and again and again. For those of you who watched my last video, I would watch it. I'll link it at the end, so you can click on it. And I showed you how this played out by using the cards in the last video, and a lot of people reacted very strongly to it. They said, oh my gosh. A lot of people thought I was talking about them. Or like, was that example me? Because it was a kind of a common thing people could see. Well, I'm going to show you today how something specific. Let's say I had a client once who asked me for love. She wanted, she had a wish for love in her life, and she consulted me, and she asked me to do something to bring love in her life. And in the end, there were problems with it. And so what caused the problems, and I already know the answer to this, but I want to show you guys. When you wish for something, when you invoke something, what causes the problem? So we're going to start again here at ignorance, like we did in that last video, and we're going to say, well, what caused her to let's just put it this way. When this sucker's spinning again and again and again, around and around and around, when you're going through the links, what happens is, now there's more to this, and I've said this is not the whole training. There's more to it in the inside here, but I'm talking about just the 12 links. When we go around these, when you're going through those, you bounce things off that could otherwise show up in your life. They bounce right off because you're so busy spinning through the links, they don't have any chance of coming into your life. This is why I always say, when people ask me about, well, what do you think of the law of attraction? It's like, well, they're taking like tiny bits of something that's actually way older and part of something much bigger, and then they come up with all sorts of excuses for why it's not working. Well, I'm going to show you why. So she wanted love in her life, so we're going to start at ignorance, and we're going to let the cards play out why she bounced it off, because it was coming, and then she bounced it. She bounced it from her life. Then I'm going to show you someone else who wanted money and bounced it. So she wanted it. We're going to start at ignorance. So what was the first thing that happened? We got worry. So in her ignorance, she started worrying. She started to worry that it wouldn't happen. She started worrying that it wouldn't work. She started worrying about her looks and appearance. She started to worry at that point what would happen if she didn't get it. She started to worry what would happen if she got it, and then she couldn't go for anyone else. She started to worry about what she would have to do. It was a lot of worry. It was a lot of mental strife, and she started going over that stuff, and it started to create a great deal of debt. So what she did then was she created a sort of debt, a sort of deficiency. So already there was a sort of negative space that started to happen. So all this worry, all this garbage, all this going over again and again, all of this strife, all of this conflict that she was inflicting on herself, all of this negative views about romance, negative views about love, negative views about men, negative views about men, negative views about love, negative views about what it would be like, negative views about what she have to give up, created a debt. So the person, before they even came, she created a debt. Now that created a wild consciousness in the monkey mind. That created a wild card. That sort of put a wild card into the picture. The weird part is that she made the invocation, she got the debt, so she said, hey, I'm willing to get this. Wild card came, and then in the body, what happened was it started to show up. It started to show up in the form of attraction. People started to be attracted to her. So now the weird part is that it actually started to come in being. This is what I'm concerned about. This is going to balance out with a negative piece. Well, let's see what's next. There you go. Balances out with another 6. That created a sort of curse. Now that came into the senses. So what happened was she liked all the attention she was getting. She all of this conflict over what she would have to give up, was she attracted him to all this stuff. Well, people actually started to notice her there, and she started to be attracted, but then she started to get hooked on that attraction part. And she sort of cursed herself from actually finding a real romantic partnership, which is what she said she wanted, the 2 of hearts, right? People started to become attracted, but a lot of people started to become attracted, so she started to get that. That stood in the way. Contact with the sense objects, certain men started showing up. There was a physical attraction and a physical peace. Feeling and emotions. She refused to open her heart. That's going right back to this. So there was a physical thing that came, but she wouldn't let herself, there's self-doubt, the debt that she'd made here through self-doubt and conflict, and I don't know, is this going to happen? Is this not going to... When it showed up as a lot of physical attraction, but she wasn't really open to receive it. So by the time we got here down to the feeling and the emotions, she was kind of numb in her heart. She was getting off on the attraction, though, right? So then what happened in the desires? Jack of Hearts. So she took the lover aspect of it. She wanted young lovers, younger lovers. She was in some case the younger lover, but she wanted to be a lover in that case. Not necessarily someone who was in a romance or in a relationship, which is what she had originally asked for. Now she was kind of getting off on the fact that people were being attracted to her, and each one was becoming kind of a feather in her cap. Clinging to desire objects, she liked all this attention and all this physical stuff. Now, had it been all about the physical stuff to begin with, I don't think she would have created the debt. She said she wanted something, but then she wasn't open in her mind to receive it. She came up with 50 reasons why it wouldn't happen, couldn't happen, shouldn't happen. Also, this was her bouncing around all over, not really being sure, not really being certain, and not really allow herself to be definite, which created the debt. So now she's got all this physical stuff going on, which is far from that romance that she wanted. The sexual intercourse became a change of heart. When she had sex with them, or when she combined with them, or when she came together with them, she had a change of heart about the situation, which gave birth to the childbirth piece, which is death. So she killed it right before it even got to the old age death part. Right in the birth part, it was death. And in the old age part, she got more worry, More going over it again and again and again. Oh, is this what I want? Oh, he's not right. Or she's coming up nitpicking. She gave birth to more conflict, created more debt, and then she'd attract more, but they would be not what she wanted. They were sort of a curse. They weren't exactly what she wanted because she was coming up with all the reasons why she couldn't. She'd have the physical attraction and it'd go all the way around again. And she'd bounce off the possibility of a real romance ever really happening. Okay? So you got to be really careful when you wish for, invoke, do this stuff, where your mind is at and what's going on. So now I'm going to show you there was a woman who wanted money, and this is a long ago. I watched a very interesting thing happen with her. She wanted money. She wanted greater money. She wanted greater wealth. And I'm going to tell you how she bounced it. She bounced it. I watched her bounce it. So we're going to call this the bounce. They bounced it out. So the last one, you see how she was spinning through all of the links of causation. It could never really come into being because right here at the ignorance piece and giving birth to the karma and the habit, she didn't really get a chance. So, and that, by the way, that was her habit at that point, to create a debt. So she'd go into relationships. So the debt is six of diamonds. It's an interesting card. It usually means don't pay for other people's debts, or don't create other people's debts, or there's a bill that you have to pay sometimes. In this particular case, all the conflict that was going on in her mind and how she was looking at, she was trying to make people pay for something that they hadn't even done yet. You see? So she wasn't looking on these men very kindly from the minute that she met them, and they couldn't really live up to her expectations, which started that debt right away. And by the time it got to the senses, there was a curse. You see, it sort of balanced out with the 2 6s there. So now we're going to show this woman who, she bounced wealth. Wealth was going to come her way, a larger substantial amount of wealth. I wasn't really involved in this one. I just watched it coming. I watched the wealth lining up for her, and I watched her bounce it. So we're going to start with the ignorance piece. And we're going to see where she started, and we're going to see what the habit that came out of her ignorance was. So you got to be real careful here, because you're going to wish for something, and then it's going to go around this. That doesn't mean you don't create a debt for that thing. As a matter of fact, you're going to create a lot of debt, because then that's going to become your habit to do it that way. See, in the last one, her habit became to sort of create a lot of conflict before it even happened, and then the guys couldn't even live up to it, and she couldn't even find one that matched her expectations, because she really didn't know what she wanted. She was jumping all over the place. So now the woman who wanted it, let's see what she did here. Ignorance. Her ignorance was 8. Oh, she demanded proof right away. So she said it's really not possible. The funny thing was, this was an individual who swore she believed in magic, but she was the kind of woman that if it wasn't right in front of her face for her to touch, taste, feel, smell, she didn't believe it. She had no faith. So the funny thing was that she demanded proof right away before it ever really got a chance to go. So in her ignorance, she wanted proof before it could ever even get going. Which was kind of interesting. Let's see what comes next. Karma habit, we got the family stuff there, or the family or the group. The funny thing is that the kind of people she surrounded herself with were also the same thing. The people that she had in her immediate circle, these were individuals who weren't really into believing into greater wealth being possible either. So when you find yourself in a situation where you sort of see, well, this is who I am, this is what we are, who you surround yourself with and their beliefs is very important. Let me just put it that way and that the people that she surrounded herself with, they weren't the kind of people who actually could help her build wealth or sustain wealth either. And they helped support this idea that, well, it's not really possible. She didn't really believe it was possible. People around her didn't really believe it was possible. The consciousness and the monkey mind resulted in suspiciousness of anything that was outside of what she normally had as an experience. Though she claimed to believe in magic and she claimed that she had power to make these things happen, she didn't really believe it. The people she surrounded herself with also wasted all of their resources, wasted any treasure that came into being, and then she was a very angry individual who was very suspicious, I'm gonna say this. It's this is a long time ago, and this individual has passed on. So, she had a lot of bitterness in her life as well. Okay, now what that gave birth to in the body was the Jack of Clubs, which this is interesting because wow. I kind of even hate to say that. I didn't expect this to come up. I'm going to put that one out here. All right. Wow. All right. I kind of hate to say this because I usually like to use a little more optimistic examples. I didn't realize how dark this was going to get. In her anger and her bitterness, she in her body, she those that she surrounded her with that were younger than her, she sort of fed on and discouraged. Okay, so good news that showed up. We'll just say good news that showed up. She would not see any good news that showed up in her life for what it was. She would manipulate it to be something else. So if it was a good thing, if it was a positive thing, if it was a gift, she'd sort of turn it around and make it something else. She also would see the people physically around her, and she would actually use her anger and her bitterness to sort of drain them and their physical energy. Okay, I don't want to go into that any more deeply than that because I actually know what I'm seeing here, and it gets a little dark. I didn't mean for this to get so dark, but I will say in the senses here, it got a little uncertain. So she was sort of uncertain at that point about what she was really feeling or sensing, because what she would actually do is she took some pleasure from her body. Let's say this. She took physical stuff as the only proof. We'll go back to the proof of anything. And her senses were uncertain about her spirit. She couldn't really see past her nose. I'm going to say that again. Left her with a great deal of uncertainty and a lack of connection to anything more spirit, which is interesting because this could be a very spiritual card and a very spiritual number. But there was a twisted, convoluted thing happening in the mind right here that resulted in contact with physical senses. Oh my God, was she a sensory individual who just got off on eating and touching things and everything. This was like the main pleasure of her life, contact with sense objects. However, there's a great deal of doubt, anger, suspicion, and feeding on those around her who had a light. Okay? This is where she took her pleasure. I have a feeling it's actually going to get a little darker after this. Once she did that, she would jump around. I'm going to say that her feelings and her emotions were very immature. This can represent a very young individual, almost a child. These made her sort of have childlike feelings. Then her desires, the Three of Clubs, that's usually kind of like laughter and things like that. Group, she'd want to share and give that to other people and be around with other people, and she'd expect them to have the same reactions that she did. But if they didn't, she'd get angry. If they didn't appreciate the same things she did, she'd get angry. And then what would happen here is this one actually speaks of a sort of lack of focus. So whatever the thing was at the moment, she would go towards that. So she wanted something that was great wealth, but she'd let these other things get in the way. And by the time she got down here to her desires, she would jump around constantly. Today she'd want this, tomorrow she'd want that, tomorrow she'd want that. Whatever she touched with her senses and got pleasure from, she was very capricious. That's actually the word. So her desires would bounce around constantly, so she couldn't ever get proof, because once the thing would start, this would all start in, and then she would jump all over in her desires, and then clinging desires, that would create a joker. So nothing could ever start to manifest because she was constantly jumping around. Well, today I want this. Well, tomorrow I want that. 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 what that created was, in sexual intercourse, was a sense of lacking. So she could never really fully bond with the object of her desire because she could never really be clear about what the desire was. She was never really clear about who she was. She was never really clear about what she was truly feeling. And because she was going kind of off of all this, the sensory stuff, it actually created kind of a debt. She never had enough. She would also overindulge to hide the fact that she was actually doing this part. She would try to project her bitterness on other people while feeding on people who sort of had a light or a spark. And then this would actually get really dark. And then she'd try to numb that with her physical pleasures. Well, she'd bounce all over with those physical pleasures, and she was so bad about it that she'd actually created a debt. She never had enough because she was always investing in some new whim that came along. And it never really got to manifest anything bigger. The childbirth piece was the King of Diamonds. I'm not going to say what that is. That's actually... Actually, I am, because this is, wow, I'm sorry, this really got dark. I'm just going to say, to make up for the debt, she found other people who had wealth, and she took it from them. Which sort of created more ignorance, and she never really could do it for herself. So while she was busy running around with this anger and this feeding on other people and the getting other people's wealth and their stuff, she could never really get it on her own. It bounced. Because right from the beginning, she wanted the proof before it ever even could manifest, and nothing could live up to that. And then she'd go through this sort of wheel and then get to the point here where she'd actually, this habit of feeding on people here, it actually ended up to be hell. And actually, that is very true. There were several individuals she ended up getting her resources from in a very, let's just say it's kind of a dark way. Okay, and she was quite okay with that, because then that just kept that feeding thing, and that created a lot of debt. So there was never really any chance for anything real to manifest in terms of bigger wealth, because she was running this cycle over and over and over again. So the fact is, if you run these cycles, if you run these links over and over and over again, the other stuff really can't get in. Okay? So that's it. That's how, that's why those things don't work. That's how you bounce off what you wish for. Again, I said in the last video about this particular topic, I said this is why truly mindfulness is all important. You really have to know where your mind is, and you have to engage in practices, because people always ask me, what spiritual practices do you do? Well, in Tibetan Bond, we actually engage in practices that help us to tame our minds, so that we're not constantly running around in this, so that if something is going to come into being, it can come into being without us running this and bouncing it off. I need proof. I want people to love me, but I'm angry. I feed on those who are around me. It gets darker. I make bad spiritual deals so that I can get whatever pleasure object I need at the moment. That creates a wild card, which puts me in debt. And then I just find someone to feed on to give me what I want. And then I go about it all over again. And it kind of did happen that way over and over and over again. Now that I look at the whole of that individual's life, that really was a cycle over and over and over again. I'm sorry, guys, I didn't mean for it to get so dark, but sometimes it happens that way, and a lot of you may have seen this sort of thing in your life. It's scary. I've actually, well, actually, that's all I'm going to say about it. I don't need to get this. This is sort of to get you aware of how this shows you how dark it can get, or how bad it can get. In which case, nothing really bigger can ever come in, because you're always trying to grab for whatever it is that's around you, or jumping around, or not focused, or capricious, or your desires are running you around, or your fears, and then that's the result. I'm Lucky Links, as always, wishing you success and good fortune in all that you do. If you'd like to learn to read the playing cards, I have a playing card course and I would be happy to give you the information about it or get you in the course. If you want to know the fees and everything, 779-302-8009 or conjurehope@gmail.com. I've got a class in playing cards. I got two. I got one in basic. I got one in intermediate to advanced. And I've got one in Mexican Loteria, one in crystal ball reading, and I've got two in Lenormand. I've got a basic Lenormand, and I've got a Grand Tableau Lenormand. And if you would like to know how to break this cycle, well, His Holiness, my Master Padma Gampo Rinpoche, is holding a Tibetan retreat, Tibetan Bond retreat here in Northern California in August. I've only been mentioning it about 1,000,000 times on this station, and then all proceeds from that will go to building a bond center here in Northern California, where we will be showing people how to break these chains and break these things that bind them, and to heal in huge ways, and to be able to do some really amazing things. If you'd like more information about that, contact me and I'll send you to His Holiness, or you can friend him on Facebook, Padma Gampo Rinpoche, and you can also email him to talk to him. But if you'd like information on the retreat, I can help you with that. I've got some videos on here where I'm talking about it, and I can tell you more if you want to know. Hey, for those of you who've donated, thank you so very much. I'm very grateful for all the donations. You guys have been fantastic. If you like these videos and you'd like to donate to help keep them coming, well, I would be happy, very happy if you did. And my PayPal and my Venmo link are in the description below. You guys have a wonderful week, and remember, sometimes when you make a wish, the chains that you're running, the wheel that you're riding on, bounces them before they ever get a chance to be in your